Hey everybody. We had kind of a slow weekend this weekend. We did see some deer. We didn't get anything, but being I didn't get a lot of footage of the hunting this weekend, I decided to show you guys how I organize my trail camera pictures. The trail camera pictures are sort of an addiction, but it's a big part. You know, everybody enjoys knowing what's on camera. We enjoy knowing, what's out there. And I'm just going to give you a little insight. Maybe it'll help you. Maybe you'll find it interesting. Maybe you won't. But as you see here, I've got folders going all the way back to Bucks 11, which I've actually got years of saved before that. They're on another laptop, but this is basically all the deer from the property that we've been at now. This is our 8th season there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, our 8th season. So basically I just have these folders. Let's open this one up, and once you go in here, I have the names of the deer. Now these deer here, we got 18 named deer. The deer get a name. Most of these deer are deer that I already knew from last year. As soon as I see them, I mean, a lot of them I'm expecting. I already know that they were there when the season ended. They shed their antlers. I don't necessarily keep the cameras out all through the spring. I'll bring them in, shortly after, just because I don't think it's great to leave your cameras in the woods all year long. They need to come in, dry out and take the batteries out and stuff like that. But I'll usually get them back out in, late May, June, when you can start seeing some antler. And what I'll do is I'll pretty much expect deer that I know were there last to be right back there in velvet, and typically they are, and then we'll start adding them on as we go. But I'll show you a couple things that I do to help me know what deer is what. But so as soon as I see a deer I know, I make his folder, I put them in there and start saving the pictures. Here's one of our deer we've had on camera for 3, maybe 4 seasons, and he's one of our better shooters. Not a real high scoring deer. He's a mainframe 8, probably 120 inches overall, but he's a 5.5-year-old deer, at least a 5.5-year-old deer. And I've got pictures dating back all the way to for the last 3 years on him. But so that's Sneaky. That's what we call him, Sneaky. And I try to give them their names, something that bases on something about them. I think when he first showed up, he was probably a 2 or 3-year-old deer, and I would never get a good picture of him. You'd always just kind of see him sticking his head in the background and not really, posing for camera. Well, you can see now he's not shy of the cameras anymore, and he's a deer that he's on camera somewhere at least one day every week, and he stays pretty close to home. But his rack is actually really what tips me off on him. Let's go all the way back to the first picture I had of him. Let's just go to Buck 16. And being the location of him has a lot to do with it. He was there late in the season, but let's see, here's some of the first pictures I had of him from the first year. And as you can see, his rack, the formation of his rack is very similar. And like I said, I track them right there. They're with from velvet all the way till the end of the year, and then he shows right back up. So that's pretty much the key on that buck. He's got kind of a unique G3s and everything. I'm starting to see some deer that actually look like they're from his genes that have similar racks, but right now he's pretty distinguishable. But I'll show you a cool one that we got this year. This is a buck that showed up in velvet, and being that he was a pretty mature buck, I kind of immediately was like, who is this? Is this a brand new mature deer that just came in? Because typically the velvet bucks are bucks that they live there in the off season. Now he may be gone. He has shed his velvet, and he actually hasn't been on camera a lot since he shed his velvet. He may disappear most of the season because he wasn't here a lot during the season last year. But if you'll take a real good look at this deer's ears, these little black tips on the inside of his ear, and even there's a little bit of a slice or something on his ear right there. don't know if you can see that or not. It's a little bit of a slice, but you know, the ears actually have a lot of detail to them. If you ever get a picture of a deer, even if it's a spike or a 4-point, I don't really save pictures of spikes and 4-points unless they give me a good profile picture of their ears and they might have, you know, a distinguishable characteristic. And then later I might have a 5.5-year-old buck and he shows me his ears like this, and I can go ahead and I can trace him all the way back to a spike if I wanted to go back that far and look. But so anyway, so what I'll do a lot of times is I'll take that picture right there of his ears. They have, you know, good characteristics on them, and then I'll go back. Let's go to buck 17, and I start thinking of the bucks that are in that area. And this is sure enough in velvet. Last year I named this buck Sherman Clump, which is something from the Nutty Professor, but just because his left antler was just kind of a clump of junk right there as he grew it. But if you look real close, his ears have the little black tips on the inside, and he has a little bit of a slice right there. And if we'll take this, and on Windows you can do this little slide over, and you can bring both these pictures up side by side and look at the black tips. The little cut is in the exact same place on both ears, and this side of his rack actually matches up pretty well. So here's a deer that had, you know, something wrong with his pedicle last year and grew a pretty good normal rack this year. And actually this is a pretty nice buck, you know, for our area right now. But that's one of the things that we do with the ears, and that one worked out good. I'll show you another one it's really easy that you would have never known. So let's go. I don't even know how old this buck is now. I think I've had him on camera 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me go to 2014. And let's see, his name is Holyfield 2. Holyfield 2. Yep, this is him. So this deer here, I mean, you would have no clue. And he's a little 6-point, little brow tines, forks on both sides, right? So I'm still going to say he's at least 2.5 years old right here. So, but with that rack, it's going to be hard to distinguish him, you know, if he blows up. So I've still got him on camera now. This deer is at least, you know, 6.5 years old. And let's see. But this year he has a pedicle issue. In fact, I'll move this one over here. The reason I named him Holyfield is because he's got like the little chunk taken out of his ear. So here he is, 4 years later, same deer, you know. And now actually the funny thing is he looks more now like he did then. But if you look at a picture, let's look at a picture of him. I'll actually look at a picture of him from 2015, which he was probably, I let him walk. And may have been his best year because he was actually a 7-point. So there he is in 2015, a year later, which he had obviously had a good year and blew up and was a 7-point. And I actually let him walk this year because, you know, he was a 3-year-old deer, and I was hoping that, you know, he would become something, and he hasn't. So now we got a really big buck on our hands, but I know what buck he is from his, you know, the chunk out of his ear. But anyway, that's basically how I, you know, keep track of all my pictures, like I said. And then down here below is where I kind of save all my, I'll just put them down here in the main folder. These are deer that I haven't even named yet. I don't know them from last year. Sometimes, here's one I just got over the weekend. This is gonna, you know, this looks like a new probably shooter. I just got 3 pictures of him from the side. More than likely he'll show up on another camera. I think I know what buck it might be, but I'm not gonna put him in a folder or name him yet. But he looks like a good deer. And I'm just gonna, I'll leave his picture down here until I'm sure of what deer it is and I can figure it out. So down here we've probably got another 20 bucks that are all at least 2.5 years or older, and I'm just waiting to name them and decide, you know,